the conversation to where I actually ended with Pat Conroy, and that's the report into anti-Semitism, Gillian Segal handing that over to the government, and a big discussion really on a pretty big report, lots of recommendations, haven't been adopted by the government, although strong comments from the Prime Minister. Here's Gillian Segal talking about it.
It's a holistic plan, and it's a plan that, coming from the Envoy, it's my plan, and it's saying if we do this and we look how these laws are going, or we look how immigration is working, it might be absolutely fine, okay? If it needs tweaking, then let's tweak it. Let us put everything under the microscope.
So there was pressure from the coalition saying, why aren't they adopting it? But actually Gillian Segal gave a bit of leeway to the government.
Well, I think there will be a bit of leeway. I mean, I think in many ways this is a response to the fact that the government, state governments, police forces all completely underreacted, were slow to react and continued not to do so for far too long. So in a sense this is a response to that, and you understand why, but I think it's actually the idea, for example, of taking funding away from institutions or universities that everybody's going to get very excited about. I don't think it'll ever get to that point. But what I do think will happen is that universities will have to be, and some of the vice-chancellors will have to be, and councils will have to be more accountable for the fact that they failed to actually control what was going on their campuses, or to be reasonable and not have their own students intimidated for far too long. So I think, and for example, and then of course we had what happened in Melbourne last week, and you had, you know, these people completely in restaurant, completely intimidated, quite apart from what happened in the synagogue, and the idea that this is kind of acceptable and shouldn't be really cut down. I think most people disagree with that.
I think the big debating point, it seems to me, and disagreement, is in relation to definitions as well. And the critique which I put to the Minister is that anti-Semitism would be seen as saying that you don't think Israel should exist, that that's an anti-Semitic statement. Now, many people think that Israel should be one state of equal citizens between Palestinians and Jewish citizens. That is a view, and whether that becomes, you know, it's deemed anti-Semitic.
Well, that is not anti-Semitic. It may be unworkable, but it's not anti-Semitic. It is, in fact, the reason it's opposed in Israel is because it would result in Jewish Israelis not being in the majority and therefore losing control of. Well,
it actually means getting rid of the State of Israel. I mean, I think that is a fairly clear point.
It is a debate.
Well, of course it's a debate, but I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't say that is anti-Semitic. I think it is.
Well, but people do contest that, Jennifer.
Well, of course.
Well, if it's a democracy, why does this state have a leave pass to be based on religion? And yet claim itself to be a democracy. If you have an entire population with access to the vote and full citizenship rights and everything else within the borders of that country, then that is what we call a democracy in every other part of the world.
Well, I think if you're suddenly going to start rewriting borders about what, you know, the state of Israel,
well, there's been a fair
very different.
I think it goes, though, Jacob, to the issue of freedom of speech as well, and particularly arts organisations would lose funding as well.
Public broadcasters, suggestion that you dock money out of universities, those things are all very problematic. Just from a practical point of view, as you said, I'd be incredibly surprised if the government adopted those sort of measures. But that does go to the concerns inside the Jewish community, who feel that there's too much focus on what Israel is doing. The irony, of course, is colleagues of ours do not have access to the territories.
What's going on in Gaza?
Very limited, very mediated, very controlled, and so you've got that tension there from the other side as well.
There is no doubt that there is high rates of anti-Semitism, and that the government, I think the Prime Minister's response was incredibly strong in sort of leaning into it and saying he wants to take it seriously. It'll be interesting to see.
But I think also, you know, the fact that you've got many people, we've had these big demonstrations in Israel. There's lots of people in Israel as well who disagree with the Netanyahu government. It's perfectly valid to do that. That is quite different to what's been happening in Australia.
I think there is a lot of diversity of view. I mean, just read Haaretz. I mean, you know, Israel is obviously a democracy where these things are discussed. Look, I want to move to, just finally, the Reserve Bank of Australia met. They didn't cut rates.